photographers. I'm really excited about something that I've learned to do in Lightroom, between Lightroom and Photoshop here, which is to really enhance our macro photos. Most people think the ideal macro photo for underwater has a nice sharp subject, super sharp, but a blurred background, or bokeh as the pros call it. And I found a way to do that that's pretty slick and fairly simple. And the interface, if you're using the Creative Cloud between Lightroom and Photoshop, is actually pretty seamless. Depending on how much RAM you have, how much computing power you have, it may take just a little while. But here we have a photo. I've already worked it in Lightroom. You can see up here the histogram for that photo. It's pretty well white balanced. It maybe is a little on the bright side because of the coral. This is a pink-eyed goby that I captured. I captured it today. And it's a nice little fish. They're a little bit elusive, so I was really happy. It's pretty sharp, as you can see, but there's areas of it that are just a little blurry. I could stand to be a little sharper. I got this dude in the background. I would do content aware to get rid of that in Photoshop, but I'll probably leave it for the time being. But you can also see in the bokeh in the background, there's a lot of little tiny bits of scatter. Now I can use a spot remove tool here in Lightroom and kind of blast those out. I can visualize the spots down here, and maybe I can see them a little better. You can see I'll bring the gain up on that. There's not that many, so this might not be a great candidate for this. But on the other hand, you can also make it a lot sharper. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move the photo over into Photoshop. So like I said, I finished for the time being with it in Lightroom. So I'm going to hit Control, click on my MacBook, and then go to Edit in Adobe Photoshop 2020. I had already got this photo in there to save a little bit of time, so it should come up at any second now. Talk amongst yourselves. There we go. So it has to read the camera raw format, is why it takes just a sec to do. So I'd already had it up there once. I'm not going to save that. So here is the basic photo, and you can see it says as a background layer. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer, and then I'm going to mask the parts of the picture I don't want to sharpen. So I'm going to go hit Command and the letter J, and you see that creates a new layer right here. I'll deselect the background for the time being, and then I'm going to go up here on the top to something called Select and Mask. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've got the transparency set kind of low on this so I can see through it. The first thing I want to do here is select the parts of this photo that I want to actually keep. So I actually will bring that transparency down quite a bit. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to use it doesn't need to be too super smooth. So like some projects I do, they really have to be pretty smooth to get rid of the borders. But in this case, I know that just kind of this area here and the fish are the things that I want to sharpen. I don't want them to become blurry and dull. Or they can stay as dull as they are, or not have, a little boo-boo there. It doesn't matter. It won't make any difference. Okay, now that's done. Everything over here is more or less 0, so we don't do anything. I'm just going to hit OK. And there you go. This is the portion of the layer that I'm going to want to use. Now, I add it to output to a new layer, so I'm going to get rid of that one. Or maybe not. I'm going to drag it over to the trash. There we go. So I got layer 1 copy. Now what I want to do is I actually want to go back in, and I want to invert that, because everything that's not the sharp part is going to be part of the blurry part. So I hit invert, and it's going to go to a new layer with a layer mask down here in the lower right. I'm going to hit OK, and I don't think it worked. Yeah, it didn't work. So I'm going to delete that. Hey, work in progress, friends. Okay. So let me see if I can do it this time. There we go. It worked that time. Okay, so there's two things we're going to need to do. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deselect the inverted layer, the blurry part. I'm going to work on sharpening first. To sharpen this, there's several tools that Photoshop has available, but the one I like that's quickest is over here. Select this layer, filter, other, high pass. Now what I find works, and you can see it's only the part that has been unmasked. Somewhere around 5, no more usually than around 10, or else it looks artificially too sharp. So I got it set down here at about 5 pixels. Hit OK. Now you see you got that nasty gray area with the background. So what we want to do is we want to blend. And so you just keep layer 1, the sharp layer selected. In fact, I'm going to rename that sharp so I can remember, and I'm going to rename this one up here blur. Okay, so sharp I'm going to select in the panel, layers panel, and you can see all these different modes that are called blend modes. It's usually this group right here that's the best. There's one called overlay, and you can see how that kind of pops now. Soft light, hard light, vivid light. You can see some differences as we go through. Linear light, too sharp. Pin light, too dull. Hard mix, yeah, psychedelic. So I usually like to use overlay, soft light, or hard light. Seem to be the 3 that I like to use the most. And I think in this case I'm actually going to use hard light. So there you go. That's the sharp part. Now to see just a comparison of before and after real quick. This little eye over here on the lower right. Unclick that. You can see the before, after. You can see how much sharper that image is. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the blurred background. So I'm going to select the blur layer, make it visible, and what I'm going to do on that layer is I'm going to go up, and for best probably comparison, I'm going to go up here, I'll deselect the other 2 layers, filter, blur, and the blur layer I'm going to use is called Gaussian blur. Now I'm going to select something there. You can see that's the tail of the fish. Over here to the right, there was some scatter over on this side. It's kind of gone. I'm going to take this up closer to like 30. And you can see it's very blurry, right? You don't even know what that thing is over there. Hit OK. Now I'm going to reselect the other layers. Bang. So now what you've got is you've got a photo with a nice blurred background with a really sharp subject. Now I'm going to save it. So I'm going to hit the Command key and S. And you can see at the bottom here it's saving 99%. Once it gets to 100, we will go back to Lightroom. Back in Lightroom, you will see in a second that Lightroom is going to create a virtual copy. There it is. So here's 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. 1 of 2 is the picture I just worked on to look at before and after. I'll just go down here in the Develop module of Lightroom, RA, reference photo. So that's the one we just processed. Here's what it looked like before. And you go, well, I can't tell much of a difference. It's small, right? Well, go up here and zoom in. So you click on that, look at the difference in detail. Quite significant, right? And then look at the background. Look at that, like that stuff. Gone. So there you have it. That's how you do this in Lightroom and Photoshop.